but I have enjoyed my tenure. I am not done yet. You're going to have to drag me out before my term is done. Yeah, no threats, no threats. But I hope everybody can, if able to, can join us for the summer retreat coming up sooner than later in June in beautiful Traverse City, Michigan. Yes. So those are my words of wisdom for now, and we'll let the conversation take it where it may be, and we'll see if there's any other wisdom I can present.
Awesome. So what are you all doing in accelerated alternative format or micro-credentialing classes? Not all at once.
Most of Michigan Tech summer courses, not 90%, but say 70% run on the 7-week instead of 14-week schedule. And that's kind of been a long time thing. Our global campus efforts very much encourage the 7-week format for fully online graduate programs. But the same engineering folk that tend not to offer summer courses at all, or at least not on a 7-week schedule, also are often hesitant to do 7-week courses for the kind of really heavy on the calculations kind of learning type of engineering courses.
I would just, oh wait, let me turn on my. So now I will share. I will share that what I do in my Canvas, we're using Canvas modules. I make module headers that are just the week and date, and then the actual content modules are below that. And then when I have a different duration class, I just leave all of the content modules in place and drag the header, the date module headers to their proper location. Saves a lot of time.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That comes up in the certification course. How do you build your course different depending in the LMS, depending on the length of it? Do you have 2 separate templates that you use? Do you create a template that can be used for either accelerated or regular format courses? So that's a good tip. Anybody else who either puts together these courses or any challenges that you've come across?
Hi, everybody. I'm at Madonna, and I help faculty members adjust their content in the online courses. And we've been working with kind of the Quality Matters framework. That's what we use to review classes. And for some classes that may meet at a 16-week time frame for fall and winter, we also help the instructors develop a course schedule document that would carry them through the summer term, which may be 14 weeks or even 7, maybe a shortened summer semester, or even they have to go to an 8-week semester during fall and winter. And we do work with them to see some of their input on what's best or how to combine the content, because the understanding is that they don't delete any content, that they have to teach the same amount of content in a shortened time frame, and that can be challenging. So sometimes we end up having to work with them for that longer running class to make sure there actually is an appropriate amount of content going in both of those. So it becomes a lot of work. Like one thing, just the schedule isn't just the schedule. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that. Sometimes institutions focus on the outcomes and meeting the outcomes or competencies based on whatever the length of the term is, but the content might be different depending on how short or how long the course is. Does anyone else have any experience or have conversations along those lines? Or anything else you want to say?
I was curious how a lab, I teach biology lab, how those are accomplished logistically with setup. Looking at how, you know, what room would be used and how would the lab coordinator set up the labs and how all of that would be juggled if you're running a 15-week and a 7-week at the same time for the same course. What kind of lab courses are going into this? Does anyone have any response for how they manage a fast lab like that with other traditional labs going on at the same time?
It's in a different room, isn't it? They're not in the same room, are they?
Well, we only have so many lab rooms. I mean, we don't have unlimited supplies of microscopes and other equipment. So that's been a kind of a stumbling block where I know we've decided, for biology at least, that they would have to do the summer course, which is 12 weeks.
I know, I can take that back to my lab folks, because I know they kind of, in a way, they disconnected the online portion from the labs. And I see your challenge there of trying to run a course that's accelerated, more content in the same lab than in others. So I can ask them what they do.
All right, thank you.
I teach biology at Mott. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Sharon. And to my knowledge, in the summertime, we have never run both 7.5 and full 15-week courses in the same lab room in the same semester. So we've always gone with one format or the other, depending on the room. So we've not had to juggle that situation. So we've taught like the same class, maybe 7.5 weeks, maybe another year, or in a different room, we would teach it for 15 weeks, but we've never tried to do both within the same room.
Yeah, we haven't in the summer either. It's just fitting it into the fall or the winter terms with the other short classes.
Yeah, we don't have any short classes that are face-to-face in the other terms. We have some online short classes in the other terms, but we don't have any face-to-face that are running like 7.5 or 8-week schedules in either fall or winter semester.
Okay, but are any of those online labs?
There are online courses with online labs. So for some courses, that's easier to facilitate than others. Like, with an A&P course, there's tons of, simulation software and stuff out there. For dissection heavy classes, there's a lot of that type of simulation software. We don't have much in the way of hybrid classes. We have a few hybrid classes where they're doing lecture online and coming face-to-face for lab, but we have very, very limited offerings of those, and those then usually run the full 15 weeks.
Thank you.
Kathy, we have a similar setup at Schoolcraft that Sharon mentioned. Limited biology classes offered in a hybrid format, a few in 12-week and a few in 15. Nothing less than that. And the labs that are on campus, the timeframes differ.
So it sounds like everybody was prepared to come and listen. Anybody have any more questions or comments about this format? When it came up in the executive board meeting, everybody's like, yes, we all deal with these issues. So if you're an executive board member, feel free to throw an issue in here.
And the big thing for me was as a listener, because I mean, there's an EduCause course coming up at the end or maybe mid-August on micro-credentialing and all that goes with that. And so I know that we're going to be sending a crew our institution to that. So I'm pretty much all ears for this session. So that's why I'm kind of sitting back on it, because I'd like to learn more on, you know, the scheduling, you know, what different courses are offered and how they are offered, how they're set up, things like that. And, you know, how are they credentialed? Is it something, you know, that is diploma seeking, or is it, you know, badging, things like that?
I just had two more briefer thoughts on the the accelerated courses that I kind of already said, but I thought it worth noting that. So the reason, like when we're doing global campus initiatives for online programs like graduate certificate programs, graduate degree programs, particularly the certificate ones, we think, you know, in our case up here, it's 7 or 14, you know, so 14 is a whole semester and 7's half one. The idea being that at a 7-week pace, anytime, if you got everything organized and built up, students can get 2 courses in a semester while still only taking 1 at a time. Hard to say whether that's, you know, it should be easier for them to at least focus on one. And the other side of that coin was the people, you know, that do, you know, something relatively hardcore, like, you know, electrical engineering or material science. They have to say that, you know, students just can't learn this same amount of stuff in 7 weeks. It just can't be done. You know, at which point we like to say, okay, you know, if we suggested to somebody, can you do 7-week sessions instead of 14? The OPMs tend to really lean in pretty hard on that, saying, you know, you should get, in our case, 7-week courses, 2 of them every semester, so students can progress at that rate. So different opinions and different reasons.
Tyler, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is more of a question. So at Mott, we have a 15-week semester that normally stretches out over 16 calendar weeks because of holidays. And we have our 7.5-week term. The 7.5 weeks feels really short, and the 15 feels really long. The first summer of the pandemic, I guess summer of 2020, we did a 12-week summer term, and that felt just right. Students didn't sort of fall out by the end because they weren't burned out, but the pace wasn't so fast that they couldn't keep up. And I wonder if anybody has any experience or special knowledge about sort of ideal term length. It seems like our term lengths are mostly an artifact of bygone times, or any experience with teaching in those 12-week type of semesters.
Tyler, wouldn't it depend on the subject also? And then I would be very interested in seeing the success rates for the 7.5 weeks back to back, because that is a lot to ask depending on the subject of students. There at a time at Mott, there used to be, we could not offer 7.5 weeks because of the intensity of the subject matter. We've sort of gotten away from that, but I'm running statistics for e-learning at least, and comparing it to the on-campus class, which would be interesting to see, especially during the COVID period, how everybody is doing in their classes, because that is telling in itself whether it's going to be, it might be convenient, but are they getting quality education in the same process?
Right. So yeah, certainly I would think it would depend on the subject matter. I know Kettering does 10-week semesters or 10-week terms, and those are very intense 10-week terms. So I wonder what the difference between 10 weeks and 12 weeks would look like for a really intense course, like a math course or an engineering course or a science course.
Mark, are they on, is Kettering on trimesters rather
They,
than?
they are.
Oh, okay. So then that's, also a different amount of material. Michigan Tech was on trimesters before I got here in 2002.
Well, at Kettering, they do one on, one off. So they do a school term, a co-op term, a school term, and a co-op term. So the students are enrolled in classes 2 terms per year. So it's effectively a semester in 10 weeks.
Yeah, I would chime in on this issue as well, with regard to the fact that a large part of Mott's student population are working adults. And I think when we start condensing, especially large contact hour courses into 7 weeks that require them to possibly go 4 days a week, you're precluding those working adults, because that just puts out a schedule they can't possibly maintain.
I agree with all those comments, and I have run many courses, like an entire semester in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and so on. And I've worked in a system where an entire semester was done in 3 weeks, where it was the only class that students took. Now, I'm not advocating that that's one size going to fit all type of thing. There are certainly, as you said, Tyler, there are certainly courses that do not lend themselves, because of the rigor or the depth of information that has to go be given, to a reduced schedule. But there are many schedules or are many classes that could easily be accommodated in 8 weeks or 7 weeks. The one thing that we have to consider when we're doing this is the time to graduation at our college is getting longer and longer and longer for an awful lot of students. And some students would be able to manage an 8-week schedule much better than a 16-week based on their workload or their full-time jobs. I would like to ask, are we utilizing alternate times for students to take classes as well as we could on the campus? We don't have any classes on Fridays. There are very few classes in the evenings in some divisions. And what about Saturdays and Sundays? When I was at IUPUI, and I realize that's a very different structure than we have here, although we dealt with a lot of non-traditional students at IUPUI down in Indianapolis. And Saturday and Sunday were brisk, busy times on the campus for working adults.
Thanks, Mark. We have offered Friday, Saturday, really short, and the success rates were not good. They filled right away, but there was a huge dropout rate. And then for some reason, they're just not getting offered anymore. And I don't know if it's because students don't want to do it anymore, but maybe it's time to start something like that. Because you're right, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are not utilized at all at our campuses.
I can give an update on what we're doing at Muskegon Community College. We're planning to do a new initiative focused on 7-week courses. And the reason we're doing it is the past experience with 7-week courses had high success rates. So that's the reason we're doing this. And we hope that'll help us improve our graduation rates eventually. So we have a task force who's working on this. Our goal is to have a draft schedule. And this is for the ASA degree. So I'm talking about transfer courses. Have a draft schedule by fall of 2023. We have 2 courses ready to go in the fall, one English and one humanities in the 7-week format. We're wondering about training for students who take these courses, online readiness training, because we want them to have that. Any student can sign up. So this is just another option for our students. And there's some outstanding issues like, how do we keep them from taking too many 7-week courses at the same time? But we're trying to create a draft schedule so a student could look at this and have a 2-year plan of 7-week courses to get the 2-year ASA degree. So just some updates for you.
Yeah, I'd be interested in following along with what you're doing. I know that we're also piloting 7-week courses in the fall. And it depends. Like I've done 7 week during the summer most of my students are guest students. They perform well, even though they're taking multiple classes. Then I have cohort classes, like we teach a Meyer employees as part of a cohort. That works well, but this will be the first time that we're doing, short term at the same time as a full semester with students who are not in a cohort and who are taking multiple classes.
I just want to share a little experience from my past teaching classes at Baker College, which had 10 weeks semesters. And I remember students having major difficulties to have their credits transferred to university or to other places because of the 10 weeks curriculum. So I don't know if those things may have changed, but I think some shorter curriculums may not be very well accepted in the case of students want to transfer in those credits. I've experienced that. I don't teach at Baker. It's been a while, but I remember that was one of the issues with the 10 weeks.
To share a little bit about what we're doing at Grand Valley, and a couple of my colleagues are with me, well, more than a couple, several colleagues are with me from Grand Valley State University today, and I do want to have them speak on their experiences. I'll put in the chat a link to a particular program that is an accelerated program geared towards our adult learner who wants to come back and complete a bachelor's degree. So this particular program, it's now, I believe, our second year in the works with this. And we've been spending quite a bit of time over the last year looking at their completely online classes, 6-week duration, the onboarding piece of how do we onboard our faculty who are going to be developing courses in this format, and the needs of how do we help our students that are taking these courses. So a couple of things of recent, there's definitely an overall template that our faculty have to use in Blackboard so that all courses, regardless of the class that they're taking, there's that same look and feel so that as they navigate to course, they have an understanding of how things are organized. And that's been really critical, having a template that's a master template, no matter what program that you're in. But if you're in this particular program, that you have a common understanding of organization. The instructional designers that work with these faculty that are teaching in this accelerated format are meeting regularly to work with them and talk with them about the accelerated format. But we've had to really strengthen our relationship with the continuing education department and talking about what does the onboarding look like for our faculty to when they sign up to even teach in this format. I'm going to turn it over to Matt and Justin. I'll let you guys fight over who wants to speak first to talk a little bit about some of the new things that we're doing with, pulling out exemplary faculty and video interviews and some of the other work that you've been doing behind the scenes to share.
I'm happy to let you go first, Justin.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I will say, I think this kind of goes to Lynn's question she just asked in the chat too. I think a lot about the faculty who teach in these courses and how we have a balance that we need to make between giving them a course that's ready to teach, but also giving them the freedom to add their own expertise and experiences into that course. I think finding that balance has been a challenge for us, but I think we have a few examples. So we have created like a resource site for all faculty who teach in our LEADS program, and that has exemplar videos of faculty going through their courses and kind of showing how things are laid out. And generally speaking, all those courses are laid out probably 95% the same. And then we allow faculty, to have spots to add in their own expertise and with instructor notes and things like that throughout a course. So I think that's been the challenge that we've had. What we've had to deal with, and I also kind of appreciate people talking about the challenge with the length of courses. I've definitely in this program we have statistics courses, computer science courses. And I think the reality behind, is it possible to learn Python in 6 weeks might not be the same as other types of courses. So I think that's a big challenge that we've had as well. I don't know if Matt, you had anything else.
I think one of the things that sticks with me when it comes to LEADS is, what is this? This is the second academic year, something like that. And we've seen the program itself sort of change a great deal in terms of its administrative structure. One of the things that characterized the first year and even going into this academic year is that the LEADS program was one that was definitely a university priority, but was not fully owned by any department or unit on campus, which meant that there were frequent sort of blind spots in terms of communication and information about the program. Justin and I and our colleagues who were helping faculty develop these courses were in many instances the boots on the ground for the program itself. And in working with faculty, we would discover questions that faculty had, many of which, I mean, were just ones that hadn't been contemplated before. And with no true ownership of the program, it took a little bit to get answers. So things are changing at the moment. The program is now sort of being overseen more by the adult and continuing education group that Kim mentioned. And I think that ownership is actually making a great deal of difference in terms of consistency, about faculty onboarding experience, and clarity of communications. So for those who are considering newer type programs, I think learn from our experience, which is that make sure that there is ownership and buy-in, and someone who definitely has oversight as part of their remit, so that there aren't large cracks for things to fall through.
Margaret had a question here about our student orientation. I will just say, I think you're asking Margaret about like the accelerated aspect of it. And that's left to our academic advisors. So we have academic advisors out of continuing ed who meet very specifically with students in our LEADS program and make sure that they're aware of the demands of an accelerated course.
So Justin, is that mandatory, and how long is it?
I don't know, Eric or Kim, do you know if that's mandatory? I mean, I know they reach out to all of them for sure, but
I believe it is mandatory that they have to have a meeting with their faculty advisor. I will ask permission. Gary had put in the chat, is it possible for us to share some of our faculty resources? Everything's inside a Blackboard organization. I'll definitely circle back with Matt and Justin about some of the things that we've developed to see, are we okay with sharing some of this? We've got rubrics, that we're using as we build out these Blackboard sites for expectations of what should be in there for consistency. So let me chat. I also want to ask our continuing ed, they've worked really hard to make a video for our faculty that are teaching in an accelerated program about expectations. And I want to ask for permission, because we did put that in the Blackboard organization. That's part of the onboarding, where they give kind of an overview of what you can expect. And so I'll ask permission if I can share that out beyond the Blackboard organization, and I'll get that to Gary so that he can then pass that out to others if you'd like to see some of the things that we've put in that organization.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I'm curious about what some of those things would be that we prepare students for in accelerated courses. I know right now I'm teaching accelerated courses, and I have a lot of university guest students coming in. They're sending me emails about how they've got to finish their degree by a certain date, so they're taking it, my course at a community college, and then the next email will be, wow, why so much reading? Why so much? I'm like, there is a lot to cover in this short 7-week course. So I am curious, other than just, yes, there's more things to do each week, what other type of things you prepare those students for?
I will say, I know the advisors out of continuing ed, a big part of it is just advising on scheduling and trying to make sure they don't get in too many classes. And then also, we've been doing a better job recently of getting the faculty connected with those academic advisors, because they're professional advisors, they're not faculty advisors. And making sure that the academic advisors understand the needs of specific classes. Like, for example, our Stats 215 class, that is certainly more intense than most of the interdisciplinary studies courses. So, and making sure the advisors understand that and the expectations there. we haven't done this, but we've thought about this idea too of having like almost like snacks of courses. So like have online, like, okay, this is what like a part of this Stats 215 course would look like, just so students understand like a rough outline of what the workload would be on a public facing external site.
The general idea up here, I kind of got it that backwards or the other way around when I was talking about last time would be, especially in like an online program rather than just a certain single class that's offered over the summer, is that on the 7-week version, you just take one at a time, yet still be able to get 2 in a semester. And that you'd be strongly advised not to take an additional course with a 7-week course. That might be different for bachelor's degree seeking students, but we only have one-offs for them as far as online learning goes. And up here, the summer track A and summer track B, which are both 7, has been a thing for like forever. So even before they were doing some online courses, they'd often have those summer courses where people like was just said, come in for 4 days a week or whatever.
Yeah, I see that Beth has her hand up. There's also some stuff going on in the chat. Also, Ed, yeah, I totally agree. Faculty training, explaining how it's not just doubling up the amount of content you do each week. Beth, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just wondering, it sounded like one of the other speakers said they wanted to offer snacks of their class. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what we've talked about this. We have not implemented this, but the idea of, on a public facing website, having like what a week of work in this class will look like. So students can have an idea of the workload before they even register.
Sure. It kind of got me thinking, I haven't really heard this since we've been in the pandemic, but before the pandemic, students would often say, can I see the syllabus in a particular course? And then I'll know if I can handle the work. And faculty were really resistant to share their syllabus for a student who maybe not register or maybe would take a peek at it and take it with them. There were some, I don't know if these were realistic concerns or, there were other things. Do any of you share your syllabi with prospective students, we'll say? I see a no.
I believe that's the outcomes and objectives that we would share, but not the syllabus.
Okay. I'm just not sure. I think maybe the student really just wanted to see the course schedule of work assigned, so to speak. And I think this is a great discussion today because we have this internally amongst ourselves. I also am concerned that students are allowed to take too many accelerated courses. It really depends on if this is a refresher for a student or if they are trying to, like, students will say, I need to cram in something so I can keep on my schedule or get ahead a little bit. And I think there is maybe a misunderstanding that there will be less work instead of the same work. And I think I've seen some students who get registered for 2 accelerated courses, maybe at the first section of the semester, instead of one after the other, and they become overloaded and then they drop out. And this is not even my realm of work at the university, but I'm concerned on their behalf now that they've wasted their own money and we wasted their time, and now they're maybe out of sequence. So that's just me on the observer side. My main duties are just taking care of Blackboard and helping faculty with those kinds of things.
I wanted to add, Ed Suniga from Delta College. I wanted to add that I think that's a very good point. And the broader concern is, where do these accelerated courses fit within the sequence of the traditional pathway program? And is it more of a disruption to students if they fall out of sequence when they jump into a 7.5 week, or they back them up within, or it's 7.5 weeks, but back them up within a 15-week period. What does that do for their sequencing and their completion if they drop out? And I think it causes disruption. So there needs to be an intentional sequencing or mapping, if you would. And I'm strongly believe that the accelerated format works well in areas that it works well in, and not in other areas, for the reasons mentioned earlier when we started talking about this. But it really needs to be intentional. And as we try to do these accelerated courses, we need to be mindful of that, I think, because you are correct. The student fails within that accelerated course. What does that do for them as far as their completion and having to circle back, knowing that there's only so many 7.5 week courses? That being said, I think it's important, and we offer both 7.5 week and traditional 15 week within the same course. And I think that's an option as well, to offer students. And that works well in those multiple section courses. But there's, again, my point is that there really needs to be an intentional design and thought in this process involving the sequencing and how this disrupts the student schedule, should they fall out of that.
Thanks, Ed. I see that Tom has his hand up, although I'm conflicted. There's a hand up urgent, but then the sunglasses lead me to believe he's just kind of relaxed and listening.
Sorry, I just put it up before. I didn't take it down yet about the,
Okay.
has anybody heard their syllabus question?
Yeah, I understand. All right, anybody else? There you go.
Oh, come on.
How can you do that? How can you have your hand up and applaud at the same time? Well, I haven't heard much about micro-credentialing. I know that some folks mentioned they're interested in it, but a lot of folks seem to be in listening mode and not really doing a lot with it right now. Curious.
We heard a couple presentations about Badger.
Mhm.
And sadly, our staff member who was really on fire to learn about that moved on to different job opportunities. So we kind of stalled out on that. I'm just kind of curious if anybody else is having a good go with Badger.
It's been our chosen platform for the most part, although Credley's a close second. And we're not really, I was curious if there was any initiative or discussion among ETOM members or Michigan community colleges about some kind of uniform, what's a micro-credential worth or what's a badge worth?
I'll just jump back on and say we were interested kind of like low stakes credentialing, just the badges for students who take our How to Thrive in an Online course so that it could follow them through their college career and we wouldn't have to keep going back into the archives to see, did they already take the course? Did they pass the course? And the same for our faculty as well. We've kind of redeveloped materials for them kind of along the same lines for faculty, How to Thrive in an Online course. And we also have an online instructor course that focuses on pedagogy. So we're constantly having to check the archives to see if that when they took the course and did they pass. But we were kind of looking at those micro-credentials to follow them in a more public way.
Beth,
No, sorry, we actually, I see there's a chat message. We actually struggle with keeping it where it's easy to find and look back. We tried some different things. We tried, putting in our Google Drive so our staff could get to it. It seems to get swallowed up in the abyss of documents that are all important. And we tried to put it in our registration software. It's not really very prominent. So faculty members who are looking for it, they are supposed to encourage students to take this free class And if the student's struggling, then they're supposed to look back and say, well, you either did or didn't take the class, kind of a thing. So no, I'm interested for ideas.
Beth, I can comment on Badger. This is Kelley. And in a past, I was getting ready to type this. I was like, I'm just going to turn on my microphone. In a past role, I did use Badger quite a bit with a very intensive training for online course design that I worked with faculty on. And I used the, I guess if you call the components or pillars of design, course design. And so for each level, pretty much they would earn a badge, and then at the end they got a quality online course overall badge. And I know several of our faculty were excited about that and wanted to post it on LinkedIn and places like that. So that's about my extent of using Badger, but it was very easy. I really liked it. And I know my faculty really liked it. And they had to do a deliverable for each one of those levels and then meet with me anyway. So that was kind of their one-on-one with me, and working through all the modules to create, whether it's their assessment step or activity step or whatever the case may be. So they did have a deliverable and quite intensive training for each level. And then they got an overall one. Once they earned all those, they got an overall badge, if that helps at all.
Thank you.
All right, we got about 2 minutes left, and we had a really good turnout today. Is there any last minute questions that you haven't got answered, or anything that you want to throw in?
How about another time if we talk about having consistent Blackboard or Canvas shells across the campus, as opposed to the instructor freedom to develop things the way they want, and the relative advantages and disadvantages of both. And let us know to come and bring our ideas with us, so we'll have already thought of it.
Sure, we'll add that to our list of potential meetup topics. I'll probably have to change the title to say something other than restricting academic freedom. So
it makes a difference probably whether it's a union house or not too. That would be something that we would want to know from others.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yep. All right, got 1 minute left. Anything else? Anything in the chat we missed? No awkward pauses in the recording. Come on, folks. Well, I guess then in the last minute, thank you all for attending. If there are any future meetup topics that you want to have covered, make sure you pass it along to an executive board member or your ETOM rep. We're looking forward to seeing you all at the ETOM retreat in Traverse City, now that Kevin has promoted. And I will afterwards publish this recording so you can watch it again, or anybody who wasn't here can watch it. Thank you.